don't know if you noticed in our group pictures, but there's a few more people than what we took with us. We actually joined up with another team from out of state, and they were on our bus with us. The groups this year were a lot smaller than last year. Our buses last year were so packed, we were literally standing in the aisles. This year we had like whole rows to ourselves. Sorry, Diane and Erica. You can be a little jealous. But because our teams were smaller, we were able to get a closer bond with them, and we actually bonded really well with our teams, and we all got along really, really well. And we just had a great time. This year is completely different than last year just because of the group that we had, because it was so much smaller. And Rose is sharing at Upper Deerfield this morning, but I wanted to share with you something that she posted on Facebook, because I know a lot of times you don't get to hear some of the other people speak, like Tina's on vacation. Nancy and Grace are actually at another church that they had already planned to be at down in Ocean City today because of something special, but they sent a video that I'm going to show in a little bit. But I wanted to share with you something that Rose shared on Facebook like last week, and it said, "Here it is a few weeks later from my trip to Panama. What memories I have that will not be forgotten. I added my picture from Panama to represent the beautiful time in Panama. I'll never forget the big hugs and the beautiful smiling face of a young girl during the time. She didn't step into the aisle or make it up front, but God put it upon my heart to get to her and pray with her. I got there just in time to kneel with her together in her place, and we cried and prayed together to God. When we finally stood up, she gave me a strong hug while thanking me. Then I looked at her tear-stained, beautiful, smiling face. And said, look, I've got tears too. We laughed together. She gave me a second big hug. Days after, and she is still in my prayers. Today, I will still pray, as she is special to me. Even though I'm not with her, God is. And that is what counts. Every time I see my picture, a prayer is going up for this beautiful young girl. I pray that God will continue to bless her and be with her as he was that day." That's just one story. That's from Rose. This was her first time going. So I wanted our team to share a little bit from their perspective, share a little bit about what our days were like, what it was like at the conference. Jordan and Jane are the only ones up here that were here last year, and they also didn't get to share last year because they were away the times that we got to share. So I just wanted everyone to share a little bit from their own perspective, some of their own stories that they have, because we all have so many. I know Pastor said Dale came home and he said, I have hundreds of stories I could tell you about Panama, which we all do, because we all had different experiences being there, even though we were all there at the same time. So I just wanted everybody to share a little bit about what their experience was like from their perspective.
All right, so first of all, in my defense, I was told that I was going to be a baseball player. I wasn't told that I was going to wear a Yankees jersey. And when I put it on, I made sure I had a Philly shirt on underneath to protect me from the Yankees stuff. It was Mariano Rivera. Yeah, you're right. Good point. And once I found out, I was kind of okay with it. Mariano Rivera is one of the most revered baseball players to ever play the game. On top of that, he's Panamanian, so that kind of put me a little at ease. Little bit. But one of the things that I felt like I was most blessed about by going to Panama is I felt like going and participating in a mission trip really bridged the gap. You see the missionaries come and they speak and they talk, and it's like, wow, that's really sad, or wow, that's really crazy that you go through that kind of thing. But from the moment we got there, once we got off the plane and we were just going through customs, the bags that they were holding, the blue bags, the little cloth backpacks, the customs confiscated them. It's like, so the enemy was at work right away. And it's like, you got to be kidding me. And they wanted to get paid for every single bag. What do we have, 1,200 bags? 1,400 bags. They wanted a payment on each bag. So it's like, wow. So they took them and they kept them till Wednesday, and eventually they did pay some $5 per each bag, that not each individual bag, but per suitcase. So, but it was mind blowing, the things that happen to block blessings, and by us being able to go and participate and share and pray and just go to these different schools and see all these kids and just watch everybody come to these conferences was just amazing. Just being able to just pray with some of these kids and just get them to participate, and it is very hard to put into words. If you ever have an opportunity to go, if God ever puts it on your heart, follow it. You should really follow it. And I'm glad I did. I'd do it again. I'd do it 1,000 times. So That's just my little tidbit.
So I'm Diana, and it was a real pleasure, joy, and blessing to be able to go to the missions trip this year to Panama. And I got to meet a lot of wonderful people in Panama, and also even amongst ourselves. I roomed with Rose and Gloria, so we got to know each other a little bit better. It was an amazing experience, and I did what Dale said. And also, when we talk about how enemy wanted to block the blessings, he didn't really get to do that, because we all kind of adopted Garrett's saying and his attitude that that's the way we like it. So whenever something was not going quite right, or the way it needed to go, we just smiled and said, that's the way I like it. Like, you're not gonna get me. You know, we got this. And we just kept going and looking at the positive side, what needs to be resolved, and we just did it. It was a lot of work, but there was so much joy in everything that we did. And for me personally, I feel that we were there to be a blessing and to help, but I was blessed in so many ways. We did a lot of skits. We went into the schools Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. It was really, really hot. And I feel that I never realized that just by talking, you're exerting energy. So by the time you're done talking, like the sweat is just rolling off your face, and you're wiping it off because it's really, really hot, but you leave there saying, wow, that was like an awesome experience to be able to share about the conference and invite these young people to come and be part of it, and then to ultimately witness over 2,100 students who actually showed up to the conference was amazing. Was just really, it kind of showed me how everything worked together for that purpose. And it was really beautiful. I cried a lot. Most of the time, no one knew I was crying. Sometimes I had such a lump in my throat, I couldn't even speak because it was really overwhelming. The skits that we did, every time we did them, I cried. I cried inside, and sometimes the tears came outside. There was one in particular where we held up these poster boards that said something like depressed. What were some of the other ones? I don't even know. Ugly, depressed, like just negative things that sometimes we feel inside of us. And then here comes Jesus, and we flip the card, and then there's the opposite of that, where there's joy and blessings and just so many beautiful things. And every single time we did that skit, it was like, oh my gosh, it just all over again. And I kept asking the Lord, what are you saying with this? Why is this touching me in this way? So I learned a lot about myself in this trip. It was pretty awesome. And I think any time that we open ourselves to receive the Spirit and to just let go, because that was a big thing in this trip for me. I'm usually the type of person that I'm a take charge kind of a person. And this trip gave me the opportunity to sit back and be the Indian, not the chief. And so that was kind of like a little struggle for me. And then I found out that it was a struggle for a few other people, and then I didn't feel so bad. But I was just like, Lord, I'm just here to be your vessel, just use me. And whenever you open yourself up in that way, I think the Lord will bless you and show you even more than you can imagine. So it was a really, truly beautiful experience, and I'm just very grateful to the Lord for having that opportunity. And if you all, like Dale said, anyone has a chance to go on a missions trip, I truly encourage it. Thank you.
Hey, I'm Jane. I think the biggest experience that happened for me was the conference on Friday night, our first one. They had an altar call at the end, and we were all supposed to pray for them, go at the front of the stage and pray for all the kids coming up to the front. So I really stepped out of the boat when we're all supposed to pray for them, and Usually I'm not very good with that. I get really shy, and this year I just forced myself to just do it. So I was praying for all the girls that I could, and I made sure I didn't miss anybody. And I eventually made my way into the middle aisle and prayed for girls, but then I heard a girl crying behind me. She was just sobbing, and I didn't see any other staff go up to her. I was the one closest to her, so I made my way to her. I had to push through people to get to her. So I immediately, without hesitation, put my arms around her, and she was just sobbing in my arms. And she was just, limp for a second, and then she immediately grabbed onto me, and I just prayed for her, and I started shaking and crying because I felt the Holy Spirit very strongly in that building, and I started just breaking down and crying with her. And then by the end of that night, she asked Jesus into her heart, and I was holding her hand while she was asking him to be in her heart. So, yeah.
I don't know, I might jump around a couple times, but that's how I am. We had the first two conferences were the girls' conferences. What was it, like Friday? There was a Friday one, and then a Saturday one for the girls, and then a Saturday afternoon for the guys. And speaking of Satan trying to block things from happening, well, that's a lie, first off. Once you're in doing God's work, unless you quit, it'll always work out for the best and, work out in God's plan. But Friday, we had our conferences, and I didn't know this till after Garrett was saying, but he said there was a heavy spirit of death and cutting for the girls in the girls' conference, and there was a lot of nobody was moving, and then that spirit broke and all the girls went up to the front, which was amazing. And then the boys' conference came along. The girls were, they weren't disruptive at all. But the guys there are a different story. They're not taught to respect women and just authority in general, I feel like. So they were very rowdy, and before the guys' conference, Garrett was like, in order for the spirit to change in Panama, the girls to, I forget what he said exactly, but it was like, in order for there to be a change, there has to be a change in the men, because the men are what cause a lot of the problems in society there. So we went in, and last year, there was kids, being rowdy and trying to get out. But this year, I just felt like there was just a heavy dose of just disruption, and the music, the worship was going on, and all the kids were settling in their seats. And then there would be a group of 10 people that would go up and leave, and we had to guard off the rows, and everything and every door had to be blocked because they were trying to get out and make excuses to leave. And that's how you know the spirit is gonna show up, when Satan tries to put some fear into you, try to get you out of there because he knows you need to be there. So that was the thing for me, and I didn't know any Spanish, so I'm like, go back to your sitio. And they're talking to me, and I'm like, I don't know what he's saying, but go back to your seat, you can hold it or whatever. There was one kid in particular that I was just seeing a bunch of these kids in a row, and they were throwing stuff at this one kid, and I'm like, oh, great, here we go. And I saw an empty seat next to him, and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna go sit near him. And he looked mad, and he looked like he was gonna throw something back at him. And I sort of sat next to him and just put my arm around him and sort of like this, but not holding him. But I just sort of wanted to show him that someone cares, and that trying to sort of be like a protector or whatever. But it was crazy. There was, I hope I impacted, I don't know if I impacted his life or not, but I hope I did something. And then there was just kids like wrapping up their bags and tossing it everywhere. And then, again, Jesus came through, and, everybody, just like last year with the guys, went from being rowdy to 360, or 180, I should say. 180, and like just being serious. Everybody went up to the altar, and Garrett said, touch as many people as you can. It's good to pray for one person, but you want to get everybody. So as when you leave, I don't know if you guys ever experienced anything like going to any retreats or any, revivals or whatever, oh, why didn't he pray for me? Or why didn't he show that he cared? And that's a big thing there is like, that just the simple touch is something that could change their lives, and just loving on them. So that's what I did, and I, went up to maybe about 30 or 40 kids and prayed with them. But it was amazing, and I'd do it again, and there's something about, all these people from these different churches coming together and doing simple things like putting bags together and practicing skits that could ultimately save people's lives and ultimately, bring people to Christ. So I think that's amazing, and I'd do it again just like Dale. I'd do it 1,000 times, and hopefully I can go back next year. So thank you, and thank you for everybody who supported us money-wise and prayer-wise. We really appreciate that. It's a blessing.
Good morning, I'm Gloria. I know a few people were concerned about me physically, handling the trip. But I thank God that the team, even the people from Michigan, they helped me, when needed. It was a true, overwhelming experience. Praying with the girls during the conference. The first conference, I was at the door welcoming the girls, and you could just feel the love. I would do it again. It was just as I said, an overwhelming experience. During the skits, they had such a strong message. And as Kelly had mentioned, we really didn't have time to really practice everything, but it just all fell together naturally. And I would do it again.
Oh, because you already shared, of course. Give me like 5 minutes, we'll probably find out. Hello, my name is Justin. I feel like I'm in one of those meetings. So normally I'm the guy who likes to be up in the sound booth and not do anything or take pictures. However, apparently I was volunteered for everything in the world. So I was up there, I did the swords at one point, which was really difficult to get the motions down pat. Let's see, what else did we do? I had to say, oh yeah, I was Jesus. Yeah, quite a few times. I had to go out and pick up Grace. Was it Grace? No. Yeah, it was Grace. After Dale beat her up. So then, it was very interesting to see how each of us were used in these roles that you just know that you would never be that person walking through that role. Like you're looking at it like, like there was one role, it was a father abuser, the daughter came home from school, threw it on her backpack, and then it was just like dad sitting there drinking a beer, watching TV, and all of a sudden he's swinging at his kid, the next one. And you could see the girls, it wouldn't always be like a whole bunch, it'd be like one or two that you would see the tears coming down their eyes, because they know when they went home, can you take this out of the monitor? Sorry. When they went home, that's what was going to happen to them. You could see it in their faces, and it was heartbreaking because you're just like standing there, and yes, I was running sound for a few of those. So I was standing back there and very glad that I was sweating because you couldn't tell that I was crying. But one of the things like Jordan was talking about with the boys with disruptions, like I wasn't in a lot of the girls because we were outside trying to organize everything. Like we had food bags for the kids. We had backpacks that got in the beginning. Then we had the prep for the boys' backpacks afterwards. So there was like a lot of like way behind the scenes stuff going on. So we had to constantly have people going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth in between. And but I got to sit in on the boys because they were like, guys, we need all the guys in there. So I was in there. I just went up to the top, just kind of sat there and was just kind of quietly praying. And then at one point, an entire section, the whole section, like it was more than like there was a few boys here and there. The whole section of boys just got up and left, just disappeared. I'm like, where are they going? So then all of a sudden they're all being flocked back in. So in my mind, I switched right to security mode and I was like, no, sit. And I just started pointing and like stood up real broad. I was like, no, no. I just kept pointing and they were just like, okay, sit down. So it was like language wasn't an issue when I was like, go sit. And no. I was like, no, sit. You know, so and you would just see how like the spirit would just constantly try and try and try and try. And you're like down in the back. At one point I walked downstairs just to start praying down in lower deck. And it was almost time for the altar call. And you were just kind of wondering like, are they getting it? Like you could see it on their faces. They're looking all over the place. You have no idea. And then all of a sudden like half the boys, when they called the altar call, got up. And like we're climbing over seats, just trying to touch every single boy, just to pray for them, just to have just have them experience somebody just setting a hand on their shoulder or head. I think at one point I grabbed somebody's head because that's all I could reach was the top of his head. And it was just like reaching out, touching, and just praying a simple blessing or just, Lord, just break through. Whatever's going on, break it through, break it through. When we would start, for me it was a little strange doing this, but when we would first start coming in, everyone would come in, we would be cheering. So you'd see everyone standing outside the doors, and like the girls, you could just see kind of their face. It was almost like they had up, you ever seen like those depression commercials where they have like that fake happy smile? Well, it was almost like they had like their kind of happy smile, but then like they come in the door and their face just lit up as we're like cheering for them, like, yeah, as they come in, they're just like, what is going on? Did I win an award? What's going on? You know, and then they get a free bag. And then they're doing, what was it, Dance Revolution and stuff, taking selfies, all kinds of stuff. I don't know what it was. Whatever the dance game was, it was cool. Because you'd have like 50 or 60 kids doing this dance game, and it's only 4 players. But they're all doing it. So it was like, you know, but there was this hype, this attitude of just excitement, just bringing them in, just loving on them. And they're not, you know, a lot of people aren't used, especially the girls, they're not used to like guys, like in a sense, loving on them and just being like, yeah, you're awesome, you know, welcome, you know, oppa, or yelling, all kinds of stuff. So, you know, just bringing them in, just getting them excited, and they just, you could just see like, it's almost like they walked in with like these heavy duffel bags and then just dropped them at the door. And then when they left, they didn't pick them back up. They just went home. Like they left their baggage, whatever they had on them, they went home completely different. And like Jordan was saying, my brother said, if we can touch the guys, the girls will come right with. If you can minister to the men and the boys, the girls will flip like that, and they will come, and they will go, okay, well, if Dad says it's cool, we're doing it. Let's go. Right, 100%. You know, and you just to have that. And you could see there was a lot of unrest during the boys, but we just, you know, there were so many people that it was like, it's like, well, I can't really do a lot of lifting. I can't really do a lot of walk, you know, what can I do? Go pray for chairs. We're in here now. Go pray for chairs. I think I sent like Gloria, a few other people who were just like, can I do something? Because there was so much that everyone was already doing. And it was like, go pray for chairs. Start laying hands now that we're in the building. Because we weren't allowed in the building, right, till Friday morning. We weren't allowed in there. Well, Thursday, we're at a church about 2.5 blocks or so away, and there was like a whole window scene that you could see to where it was. So as you walked past that window, you just prayed out those windows all the way across. And we like went through, laid hands on all the chairs. I mean, I was in the corners. I mean, my hands were black by the time I was done praying. I had touched everything. Like, it's an old church, 1800s. Like, we had prayed over every single aspect of that church as if our prayers were going from that building straight into that building and flooding it everywhere. And then it was like, now that we're here, you need something to do and you're not sure what to do, start walking. Do the miles, get your steps in for the day, pray for every single chair, everywhere, every avenue, every crack, anything. And we just, everyone had something that they could do, which I think really helped. Because some people were like, well, I can't really, David came with us, and he was having some difficulties, and I was like, listen, you're a prayer warrior. I need your prayer warrior. Can you go and just start laying hands on seats? I don't, I'm not trying to offend you. I just know that I can't see anything else that doesn't require a lot of lifting or bending. If you can knock that out, he's like, I got it. And just started sending people to pray. I guess that's it.
So what Justin was saying is something that I wanted to share is the day that we were into the church. It was Thursday afternoon, and it was our prep time. We had to blow up, thousands of balloons like we did last year. We had to pack the bags, do lunches, like all that stuff. It needed to be done, and we had to prep it all at this church, and then all that stuff had to be either carried down the street, like we had the balloon bags, like the big net balloons that you've seen before, where they dropped from the ceiling. Well, there were 3 of them because there was one for each conference, and they literally carried them from the church to the building that we were having the conference in. So, these crazy people are these crazy gringos carrying balloons down the street. What's wrong with them? But we had to prep all that stuff at the church because we couldn't get into the conference center till the morning of. So knowing that we only have this little window of time to prep all this stuff, Garrett said, if this stuff doesn't get done, it doesn't get done, because we need to spend at least 2 hours in prayer, because we know that if we fight these battles now in prayer, we're not fighting them tomorrow at the conferences. We're not going to be going against these spiritual walls at the conferences. And so all of us in this second story of the church that's not air conditioned, walking around praying with 4 fans. That's all that was going on in that building. So, when you did your laps, try to get at least around a fan at one point so you could cool up. But we literally just spent 2 hours just praying over, like Justin said, every seat that was in that building, because that building was representing where we were going to be the next 2 days. And we weren't going to be able to be in there to pray with that ahead of time. But we knew it doesn't matter where we're praying, because God's going to hear those prayers. And touching those seats in that building represented the seats in the other building. The walls represented the walls in the other building. Everything that we touched, we believed was touched in that other building because of how we were praying and because we know that God heard those prayers. And when they were saying how the boys were starting to leave, it's different for us. So the way that it worked for the conferences is when the girls' conferences were going on, the girl leaders and volunteers were doing the nails, doing the hair, doing the Just Dance. We were in there praying over the girls while the guys were prepping other things. So when we prayed over the girls, you're talking pretty much only the teenage girls and the women were the ones that were praying over these girls, and any fathers that were there is how the way they worked it, because they didn't want teenage boys praying over teenage girls. They didn't want teenage girls praying over teenage boys. So they worked it that way. So there were more women on the trip than there were men. So we did have more women praying over the girls. So when it came time for the boys, he said it to both the boys and the girls. He's like, you're going to have to pray like you've never prayed before. Teenage girls, teenage boys, you're going to have to pray like you've never, ever prayed before, which is, like Jane said, this is something like once you get in there, you're literally climbing over seats trying to get to these girls, because Garrett said, I don't want one person to come to one of our conferences and say, I didn't get prayed for. Nobody prayed for me. I sat in my seat crying and nobody came to me. And so we did everything we could to get to those boys and girls. And when you're praying, you don't know who got reached. So some of those kids probably got prayed for more than once. If they're at the front, of course they're going to get prayed for easier because we can get to them easier. When they're in a middle aisle and there's kids standing all around, we're climbing chairs. It's like mountain climbing through the building. And that's just because we knew that that's what we needed to do. That's just how we like it. But the girls' conference, it was, I don't know if the guys realized this or not, but there was at one point during the girls' conference, all of a sudden, all the girls just started getting up and leaving. Like just floods of them. They were all coming out. And there weren't doors for how they came in. It was just a curtain. So there's not really like a way to like shut the doors and stand in front of them. It was a curtain for them to get past. And I turned to the MA, Craig, and I'm like, Craig, what is going on? Why are all these girls leaving? They haven't done this before. They didn't do this at the conference before. Randomly, they'd get up and go to the bathrooms. But it was, I'm telling you, like the place was almost emptying out. And we were like, what is going on? He's like, I don't know. So they had to start pulling some of the nationals that only spoke Spanish that were there to help with the conference and having them go back out and get the girls to come back in, because we have no idea why they were even leaving. And we know that it was just the devil trying to get those girls out of there because God was about to do something great, because altar time was about to come. And we know that that's what it was, but like, it's something that's never happened before. And we could see there's such a spiritual struggle going on in that building, and you could feel it with those girls and the boys too. But some of the girls have said, we love coming to this conference because it's the only church we get. This is our church for the year because our parents don't let us go to church, which is a sad thing. That's sad that the kids can't go to church, and they just want to be there and worship. They want to hear about God. They want to be prayed for. So when they go into the schools, and when Garrett's teams go in there throughout the year and go into the schools, they love having them there because they can pray over them. Even when we went into some of the schools, they're scheduled ahead of time. So we'll get up and they'll be like, okay, you're going to go to this school in the morning, you're going to do an assembly, you're going to hand out tickets, then you're going to go to this school and hand out tickets, then you're going to come back to the first school and you're going to do another assembly, because they have 2 sessions. So there's different kids in the morning that are there in the afternoon. So we're like, okay, so we get to the school and we're waiting and waiting at the gate, and we're like, why aren't we going in? They won't let us in. What do you mean they won't let us in? They said that we were supposed to be. Well, they're not letting us in, so we need to pray. So we get together, we start praying. Yeah, we're not letting us in. So we finally get in. This guy takes us all over the school. Like, it's absurd, because we had been in another school where they said, here you go. You have full reign of the school. We split into teams. We took this floor, they took that floor. Like, we were done in half hour because we were able to get through the school easily. This guy goes, okay, I'm going to take you to the rooms. So we go to this side of the building. We go up 3 flights of stairs. Okay, one team can go in this room. Go back down to the bottom steps. Okay, one team can go in this room. Okay, go over to this side of the building. One team can go on the 2nd floor. The whole group is going up and down these flights. And then we come back to this side of the building. Here you can go on the 3rd floor in this room. And then you can come back. And we're like, seriously, can we plan this out? Let's hit all the rooms on one floor at one time. Like, who does this? So we were just like up and down, up and down, up and down. We came back to the school that afternoon, and they're like, go wherever you want. We're like, are you kidding us? Like, why couldn't we do this morning? It would have just been so much easier. We went to another school where we were supposed to just go in and hand out tickets, and the director of the school says, I want to see your team leaders from each of your teams that are here. And so they call me, and they call this other girl, Allison, they call one of our interns. Okay, we got to go in, we got to meet the director. And we're like, hi, thank you so much for having us. We really appreciate you letting us into your school. And she says, we really appreciate you coming. All right, I want you to stay, and I want you to do an assembly. And we're like, okay, go unload the bus, let's do an assembly. So now we're going to do all of our skits, because they were just so impressed that we were there. We were there wanting to care for the kids that they're doing this conference. And it's great how God works. You never know. We never knew what was going to happen. We didn't know what we were going to do, literally from one minute to the next. We had no idea what we were doing. But that's just how it is in Panama. It's just how it is. But we did have a good time. And Garrett and Tara invited us back like they do every year. And we were talking about last night, we were saying one of the things that we like about going to the same place every year is this year was completely different than last year. There were less volunteers. It was at a different place. Even going into the schools, it's always different. We did get to go back into one of the schools that we were in last year. So our last school that we went into this year was the first school we went into last year. So it was pretty cool to be able to be in the same school that we were in before. And I think a lot of our team going this year did not expect that they were going to, when they got there, that they were going to be doing dramas, even though we said, oh, you'll get trained and all that. I don't think they expected, I don't think Gloria thought she was going to be calling some kid that she didn't know names in Spanish. Like, I don't think she thought she was going to be beating people up. I don't think Dale thought he was going to be beating Jordan and Grace. Like, I texted Pastor, he's like, oh, how's it going? I'm like, great, Dale just beat up Jordan. He says, well, it was probably deserved. So, like, didn't, like, nothing, just totally fine. But I mean, I don't think that's what they were expecting to do when they got there. They weren't expecting to all be in skits, but because of how small our team was, pretty much everybody had to be part of that. Yeah, and you never knew when you were going to be called on to pray for somebody, like randomly in a school. God could tell you need to pray for that person. The way the boys and girls act to each other in that school is so completely different than it is here. Like the possession that boys feel they have over the girls is just crazy, unheard of. But I do want to show you a real quick video that Nancy sent in. Like I said, they're out of the church today, but they did send in a video that they just wanted to mention real quick what their impression of the trip.
Good morning, everyone. Wanted to share a little about our Panama mission trip. Truly blessed to have been able to go again this year. We were truly blessed during our trip there. A lot of hard work, but of course every second of it blessed beyond measure. I learned that to understand, to be freer when I hear God speak to my spirit, and not to second guess, but be obedient to Him and what He wants accomplished through me. So we were awesomely blessed to be there. This year again.
So, my favorite part was praying over the girls when they did all their calls. What's your favorite part?
I think it's the same. Good morning, everyone. Wanted to share.
So most of you have probably seen Grace and Nancy in church, but haven't heard them talk because neither one of them talk a lot until you get to Panama, right? It's crazy how much they open up. We're walking through the airport getting ready to leave, and I'm like, Nance, where's Grace? She's like, I don't know. Where Grace is normally right there with Nancy all the time. She's off with Jane and Bianca, and just had a great time. They really open up, and for Grace to say her favorite thing is praying over the girls, how many teenage girls do you know are willing to just go up and pray for somebody they don't know? I mean, our girls here don't even do that. I do girls ministries, and we have our teen girls conferences, and the teen girls here are not like that. It's something about when you're out of your comfort zone that you're not in your own environment, you're able to step out of your comfort zone a little bit more. I know Diane and Erica even shared that last year because they're super quiet too, and it helps you to step out of your comfort zone. You kind of have to. You have to adapt to where you are, and you feel the Holy Spirit moving and telling you what to do, and you're just following the Holy Spirit. So I said this year when we were getting ready for Panama, I'm like, I really don't feel like going to Panama again this year. And we don't go because it's Garrett and Tara, it's our brother and sister-in-law. We don't spend time with them when we're there. We barely oh, hey, it's nice to see you, in passing, really barely see them at all. We saw our nieces and nephews in passing, and then got to spend an hour with them our last night there. But we just our nephews, sorry, not our nieces, but just our nephews. But we don't go because it's them. We go because we believe in the ministry that we're doing, and we like doing it. And they like having people that have been there before, even if we're bringing in half of our group that hasn't been there before, we at least know what we're doing. So when we go to help them pack up their stuff, we know how they inventory their stuff. We already know how to put it together. We know what their schedules are going to be like. We know how to handle stuff, so we're able to run the teams better for them and to help them. And they like having people there that know what they're doing and people that they can trust to pray over the kids. You want to have people that are spirit-filled and that know how to pray and what to pray, and to trust that God's going to tell them what to pray. So they invited us back. We'd love to go again next year. I'm more excited this year to go back again than I was last year to go back again. And as soon as we got there, I was like, oh, I love it here. I hate heat. Hate. I love winter. I love summer. I love my boots, my sweatshirts. I love that. I don't like being in jeans when it's 800 degrees outside, and you're literally sweating the second you walk out the door. We're not even exaggerating. It's like no heat you've ever experienced. It's just so hot there. But I love being there. We all loved being there. We love doing what, we felt God's called us to do. We love being there on the mission trip, and like we'd all go again in a heartbeat. So we have already talked about going back again next year. Once the flights become available, we'll start looking for them again. So we would love to have anybody that wants to go. Well, we can take as many as you want to go. They've got the hotels. We've got the room. We can make it work. God provides a way for us to get to the airport, a way for us to get to Panama. Listen, we almost missed our flight because we hit traffic going there. It was bad. We literally were there an hour before, and the lady said, you can't check in. And I said, the flight doesn't leave for an hour. Yes, we can. And she says, well, you didn't check in ahead of time. I said, because your airline won't let us, and you're going to let us go through now because the airline we took last year did, and we'd really love to use you again. So you are going to let us check in, and you are going to check in the 2 people that aren't here yet, and I will give you a copy of their passport if you need it. And she said, and then, yeah. There was in the name of Jesus there too. Yeah. Everybody else was already through. We checked everybody's bags, and I said, they need to check in. She's like, are you willing to miss this flight because of these people? I said, we're not going to miss the flight. We will run through the airport. We are not going to miss this flight. She said, all right. Checked them in. They got there. We ran through the airport. If you've ever gone through an airport, you know that when you get to the security line, they say these nice, sweet little words like, any electronic devices that you have in your bag must be taken out and placed into the bin. My husband, because of our super wonderful brother, sent us an entire backpack full of little electronic devices. And I said, Justin, we can't take out all these electronic devices and put them into this bin and repack this bag and make this flight. And he said, I'm not taking them out. And we said, sir, I'm sorry, but this entire bag is just all electronics. And he goes, just put it through. And I'm telling you, nothing. None of us got stopped going through. Well, the 3 of us running through. The rest of them had their own, but they made it. We ran, got to the gate. I checked in, and they scanned it. He says, you need to get on the plane. I said, nope, not until you let them. He says, well, your pass has already been scanned. I said, then you better let them on, because I'm not getting on the plane until you let them. And we made it. We made it on the plane. We got to Panama. It was no problem. But it was just the devil stopping us any way that he could. Put traffic there. We know that God's going to win. We're going to get there. And I said, we're going to have a good trip. It's going to be good. We were all fine, and we made it. And it was great. Don't go because you think, it wasn't as bad as last year, getting to Panama and coming home. But we had our struggles, but it's worth it. It was worth it. Huh? Nobody had fruit coming back. Nobody had fruit coming back, Alexis Arthur. Thank you very much. No, but when you come from Panama, they do double security in the airport. And you can get a drink at the airport, but you can't bring it on the plane with you because they set up this little checking station right in the terminal. And I said it, Garrett said it, you cannot take liquids through the airplane. Don't you know my sweet little Jane buys herself some hot sauce? And she says, Kelly, they took my hot sauce. And I said, yeah, honey, because you can't bring it through. Marcus says, Kel, I know you said that we can't bring any drinks on the airplane, but I have this bottle of water, but it's not open. Is it a drink? Well, yeah. Then you can't take it on the airplane with you. No. And our sweet, precious Rose got the 4 S's on her passport, which meant she had to get searched even more than everybody else. But she was totally fine. It was super easy. She just got a little bit more security check than the rest of us, so it was fine. But we all had a great time, and we invite anybody, literally anybody that wants to go with us next year. We would love to have you. The streets are not like our streets, so they're a little bit rocky. It's hot. But you can do it. Anybody can do it. Can you pray? You can do it. Gloria said, I did. Gloria did it. Gloria did an amazing job. David literally only has no use of his left arm, and he was praying over kids in pictures. He was doing everything that he could. David spoke Spanish, so he was able to go into all the classrooms. And I said, he had days where he's like, all these people are moving stuff, and I can't move anything. I said, David, you speak Spanish. You can communicate with these kids that we can. So we're a little jealous of you because you have a bond with these kids that we can't get because we don't speak Spanish. We could still bond with them, but we don't have that. We have that little bit of a language barrier. But we still all had a great time, and we'd love to have you come with us again next year. Pastor Rick.
All of us have a key in our pocket somewheres. I've been playing with mine during church because the Bible says in the book of Revelation, behold, I stand at the door and knock. And we just heard some powerful testimonies. And I just encourage you, take a look at what you have in your pocket, what you hold in your hand, because God may just turn it into a tool to use for his glory, for his honor. It doesn't matter what it is. The Bible talks about stammering lips, halting tongues. It's not us. It's him. And so I want to thank the team. And I like missions, but I would rather give. So I don't know. I don't know. But I encourage you, think about it. I'm going to think about it. I hate heat. Are we doing an Alaska trip?
Oh, please. I love it.
All right, that's the next. Would you stand with me?